Well, welcome to the next session, and this session is on the motivational gift of teaching. Now, I'll remind you that this is my number one gifting, and so heads up, there may be more personal stories that I can interject to give you a little more insight because this is my number one, and this is what I do. So, as I told you before, I'm kind of a word geek. Teaching being my gifting, I'm a word geek, and so I like to go to the original. Look at the etymology of words. And so this word from the Greek is didaskon. Didaskon. It's actually spelled D-I-D-A-S-K-W-N, but it's pronounced didaskon. It just means to instruct, to clarify, to elucidate, to illuminate, to simplify, and to illustrate for the sake of communication and understanding. It's a lot of information, but I feel like it brings clarity to what this gifting is. The definition of teaching used in this study is the extraordinary ability to discern, analyze, and deliver information and truth so that others will learn. Again, this does not mean that you will be a teacher, that you'll have to be the profession, work in the profession of a teacher, but this is how you're motivated. This is what motivates you. And I can tell you personally, once I began to teach more, it was my third, strongest gifting, and from the assessment I took in '93. But when I took it, just a few months ago, it had actually moved up top because I just spent 3 years of pastoring a church and basically teaching every weekend for 3 years. So it really exposed me to that, and I really began to understand that that's what I love to do. But prior to being the pastor, I loved preaching. When I got a chance, I would go. I had several friends that pastored churches and relatives that had churches, and I would go preach for them. And when I'd get through, I just told my wife that's what I meant to do. And I was equating it with just the preaching, but then once I began to do it regularly at church, then I thought, well, I want to do some investigation. I love that so much. I love presenting information. I love the study and that sort of stuff. So I actually began to volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association as a community educator because my father had passed away with Alzheimer's and I was involved in his care. And so I began to go to community groups, church groups, just different organizations and people, and present their information. Now, it wasn't any scriptural information, it wasn't spiritual by any stretch of the imagination, but I got that same energy from sharing the information, just taking their curriculum, their PowerPoint, and presenting it because of the fact that I had some inside knowledge and I was able to enlighten them, and it just energized me because I was sharing information with people that was going to help their life and make their life better. So I understood. Then I understood, and then I took the assessment again, realized, okay, yeah, teaching is number one. So the Greek word didaskon implies one who is teaching and does not as such refer to the position of teacher, as we discussed. Now, we are all teachers on some level. Again, we have all 7 of the gifts in our makeup. We have all 7 present, but some of them are stronger than the others. Some of them are more dominant than the others, but we all have the ability to teach. We all are teachers at some level. So, because we will share information with people and that sort of stuff, so we'll share at some level. Okay, so now teaching is in the category of doing. It is in the doing category. So the gift of teaching uses sound, rational, and instructive reasoning to convince and help others to learn. So people with the gift of teaching are consummate debaters. My wife can attest to that. My family can attest to that. It's how they convince and help others to learn. It doesn't matter if they are in the office or at home. People with the gift of teaching are constantly thinking on their feet. Teachers need to know the reasoning behind concepts or ideas. They do not take anything at face value. I'm having to resist commenting on every one of these. I may come back. Teachers can appear argumentative while they are simply trying to gain further understanding. So, Let me help you understand someone that's got the motivational gift of teaching. In our mind, we have to have all of the information so we can process it. In our mind, we want all of the information. So when, say, my wife and I are having a discussion, and sometimes it may actually be an argument or whatever, but I tend to not leave it alone because I want things resolved, but B, I want to totally understand what's going. I want all the information. And my wife is not that way. She just says, okay, that's good enough. Okay, fine, move on. And that frustrates me because I want more information. And so my argumentativeness is not just because I want to argue, it's because I'm trying to get more information. Now, I have to watch that myself. I have to be sure and balance that, and not keep pushing her, because that's just wrong. To keep pushing her buttons, that's just wrong. That's not good for the relationship. I have to give part of who I am away to her and say, okay, I have to be okay with not having all the information in some instances. And so when I see that it's going to be, it may be detrimental to the relationship, I have to make the decision, okay, that's enough information, I'll just leave it alone. So there we debate, and especially if we know something, if someone is using, disseminating wrong information, we want to correct it, and I may discuss that here in a minute, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But we convince others. We have the ability to convince others about truth and try to get them to learn information. They have the ability to synthesize ideas which result in a constant mental flow of information. We can take concepts and ideas and we can synthesize them together, and we can come up with the information. Case in point, again, another personal experience. As I told you in prior videos, that before becoming a preacher or a pastor, minister, I was actually did live audio, live sound. Now I didn't go to school for it. I did go to some studio classes and stuff at a community college, but as far as the live sound and stuff, most of it I learned just by doing it and getting with the equipment. But however, I always, when I was around people that knew what they were doing, that knew more than I did, I would listen to their conversations and information that I did not have, I didn't understand at the time. Then I wouldn't ask questions because I was young and I was, too afraid to ask questions, too afraid to look dumb. Now I don't care. I want the information. I don't care if you think I'm dumb or not, but I'm going to ask questions now if I don't understand something. That's just part of maturity. But at that time, I would just listen. I would listen to what they say, just nod my head, yeah, whatever, and then file it away in my brain. Then later, at a different time, when I'm doing something else and that comes up, then I can take what I remembered from that conversation and then what I'm learning now, and I can actually bring them together and say, oh, that's how they come together. That's how that works. I learned a lot of different techniques and a lot of different ways of doing things. Learned how to do set up some sound systems that way, because I would take information that I'd heard from one conversation, filed it away. I didn't understand it until I got in the situation where I needed it, and I was trying to figure out how to do it. Then it would begin to come together, so I could synthesize information. Since talking about those with the motivational gift of teaching, since their mind is always running and exploring new concepts, they tend to be self-motivating and self-starters. I'm always wanting to learn something, always wanting to. My mind is constantly going. My wife says your brain never shuts down, and it doesn't. In fact, I have a hard time sleeping sometimes because I'm thinking, I'm going through, I'm talking, rationalizing things in my mind. I'm figuring things out and that sort of stuff. People with the gift of teaching need intellectual stimulation. They easily get bored with routine tasks as they love to learn and keep their mind busy. So this is something I learned about myself that I used to think was a bad thing. So I would get bored really easily, and I would try to do something, And especially when I was, in my career coming up, because I had so many different careers. But I would go to a job and be doing a job, and it's a repetitive job. It's something that you do over and over and over and over and over again. And I would get bored with that. And I would just, I changed jobs so many times. Well, what I learned was once I learn about something, once I get mastery over something, not that I'm the best at it, but once I have a full understanding of that concept, then I'm ready to move on. I've learned it, I've mastered it, I'm ready to move on. And so that was the way I'd been all my life. Most of the time, I used to think I was unstable because of that. This is what comes from not understanding yourself. I used to think I was unstable because of that, but once I've learned that, then I try to strategize and plan so that when I learn something new, that I can adopt that or adapt that into my life and still use that, but not have to drastically change and do something totally different. However, I do like doing totally different things all the time. Once I learn how to do something, then I'm okay and I'm ready to move on. So I didn't have a lot of tenure in most of my jobs. The longest I stayed with one job was probably about 8 years was the longest. And so that's one thing I learned. I have to have an intellectual stimulation, and if I don't, I get bored really easily. So teachers usually enjoy research and love the opportunity to share something they have learned. Now, this is one thing that taught me also. Forgive me for using myself so much, but this is who I am, and maybe this will help someone else here. But when I love to learn, now not in the traditional way, traditional school way, but I love to learn things. I love to research. I love to find stuff out, to Google things. And I mean, we'll be going down the road, and I'm thinking, and I'll have the thought of, I wonder where that phrase came from. I wonder how that's done, or whatever, stuff like that. And of course, back in the day, I would Google it while I was driving. So now I have my wife do it, or I'll make a mental note and do it later. So I'm not unsafe while I'm driving. But so anyway, I want to gain that information. But as soon as I learn information, as soon as I have gleaned something, my mind immediately goes to who would benefit from this knowledge. See, that's a teacher. A teacher wants knowledge. They crave knowledge, but not just to have the knowledge. It's because they want knowledge so that then they can disseminate it to someone else and give it to someone that'll benefit them and help them. So that's just what people with the motivational gift are teaching. So it's not, if you're not a teacher, you don't have you're not employed as a teacher, and you think, man, I just love learning things and telling people about what I learned. That's the motivational gift of teaching. That's just how you think. That's why you love to research things. That's why you love to figure things out and that sort of thing. So I'm always looking for somebody to share the information with, because once I get it, that's the very first thought I want. I don't do it just so I'll know stuff. That's not why I do it. I'm a knowledge junkie, but it's not just so I'll have it all in my brain. It's because I want to be able to share it with people, and I want to be able to help people, because some people won't have the ability, or don't have the stick-to-itiveness, or whatever you want to call it, to actually research something out, dig as far as and my brain processes so quickly. I can process it quicker than a lot of people can, because that's the way I'm made. My brain is made to process information quickly, more quickly than a lot of people, and so I can get the concepts and the ideas faster than a lot of people, and so then I can actually help people and give them that information. So depending on other dominant gifts working in a teacher's life, they tend to be talkative people. Go figure. When it comes to explaining beliefs and ideas, if you're with me in some social event and you ask me about what I'm doing, I have to consciously make an effort to not dominate the conversation. It's just because it's what I'm learning, and I will go on and on and on. I went to Orlando, Florida to get certified with the John Maxwell team, and so I could be a certified speaker and teacher and coach with them. And every meal I would sit down at a different table with different people, and I would ask them about them first. They would tell me about them. Then if they ever asked me what I'm doing, I had to consciously not occupy the table because it was things I was learning, and it was, in fact, a lot of it was about this course that I'm doing. So I have to watch that. So I'll dominate conversation. So we'll be talkative people. I'm an introvert as a rule. I mean, I'm an introvert, but you get us talking about something that we're learning, sometimes we won't shut up. Teachers have an ability to make difficult concepts easy to understand. Their motivation is to help others learn and grow in understanding, skill, and competency. That's one of the things that has been said about me. I don't say it about myself, but I do say it about myself now, but it's been said about me by so many people, is you have this ability to take complex ideas and simplify them so that I can understand them. And so that really gives me pleasure. Really excites me when somebody says, I finally understand it. I was in a preaching at a church one time, and an elderly gentleman came up to me after church, and he said, I've been in church all my life. I've been attending church all my life, and I never understood that concept until you explained it tonight. He was in his late 70s. He was 77, 78 years old, and I was able to explain something that he had heard all of his life but never totally understood, but I was able to put it in a way that he could understand it, and it benefited him then. And you want to talk about getting jazzed, getting excited about it. That's what a teacher, people with the motivational gift of teaching, get excited about. So their motivation is to help others learn. We want to help them grow in understanding, skill, and competency. Now, teachers tend to be gifted intellectually and often seek to become experts in their fields or specific subject areas. Again, this is a generalization. I believe I'm highly intellectual only because those around me tell me I am. I'm not trying to say I'm a brainiac or anything like that. I'm not trying to think more highly of myself than I ought to think. I'm just repeating what's been told me. I have an intellect. It's not a classic intellect. There's some of the intelligence tests that I've taken that I felt like an idiot after I finished it. But when it comes to other things, I'm intellectual in that way. Now, people with this gift are analytical. Their analytical skills often push them towards higher level math and sciences. No, not with me. This is information that I've gathered and I've gleaned from other sources and things like that. So this is a generalization. If that applies to you, great. I'm glad that I can enlighten you with that way. But I wasn't really big. I'm still not fond of math. Science is okay. I'm more of a history buff than anything. So anyway, that's what I look to. The ability to see patterns of behavior in situations allows them to diagnose or expose problems that others don't see. Because we can analyze things, we see patterns because we're always learning. We're always, our minds are constantly going, our minds are constantly trying to learn so that we can glean information. So we will see patterns in what's going on, and we can actually diagnose a situation, and it'll benefit those around us. So often teachers are sought out for this wisdom and find themselves giving advice to others on a regular basis, and that's true. Now again, we're talking about that they all these gifts, have are part of the have a part in the body or part in the group, and so those with the motivational gift of teaching are the ears of the body. They are the ears of the body. They're motivated to search out and clarify truth and to validate the facts presented. They're also motivated to explain inaccuracy of statements made or conclusions presented. I'm always correcting people. Sometimes it's not good. Funny story. We were driving down the interstate close to our house, and there's actually a penitentiary there right on the interstate, on the service road. And they had a sign up, hiring correctional officers. And I told my wife, I said, hey, that'd be a great job for me because I can correct people all day long. I can go in there and I can say, listen, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Of course, I know that's not what a correctional officer is, but I thought, hey, that'd be a great job. I can correct people all day long and get paid for it because I do it anyway. I do it without even thinking. My poor wife, she is just the saint because she deals with me. She lives with me. God only knows why he gave her to me, because I don't deserve her, but it's just one of those things where I'm constantly, without thinking, I correct her because inaccurate statements, using a word inaccurately, that sort of thing. Not that, see, and you'll probably see through these videos, I'm not even an expert at that, but I just feel like that's what I've got to do. So anyway, but they also desire to present truth in a systematic sequence. They want to be sure that they get it done systematically. There's always a pattern, always a pattern, always a pattern, always a pattern. That's just the way we are, systematic. They like to speak to the level of understanding of others. We have the ability to go in and to assess the audience that we're teaching, and we can bring it to their level. Not that we're dumbing down, but I have the ability to go into a place and teach, and I can adjust the terms that I use. I can adjust and make it more applicable to the listener, so that they understand it better. I just have this way of understanding people, because different life experiences and different things, people refer to things or associate things differently. So I learned that, and so that's something I didn't learn that. That's something that's just inside of me. So their motivation is to research the facts, the history. They research new ideas. They want to know the details. They impart instruction, and then they communicate knowledge. They love to communicate knowledge. So here are the benefits, the pro of the motivational gift of teaching. They're motivated to validate truth. They want to know why, how, when, and where. They want the facts. They want the details. And then they can put the details in order. So this is the good part. They will dissect, we will dissect information, and we will understand the breadth of it and as much as we can, and then we put them in order in a systematic way so that people can understand it. Now the drawbacks is they can be really boring. I hope I'm not being really boring, but they can be really boring. I'm not going to say I'm boring, because that would just be wrong. But they can be really boring. They have to tell you why they are qualified to do what they do. They place a lot of importance on degrees or academics. Now see, that's one of the things. I don't have a degree. I went to college for a period of time, but I don't have a degree. I couldn't afford to stay because I was paying my own way. But when I decided to pursue this teaching, when I decided I wanted to have something to validate me, and so that's why I got certified with the John Maxwell team, because I felt like it brought some validity to my teaching and to my abilities, and so that's why. So we do that, but that's part of the downfall, is we feel like we have to validate ourselves. If they don't feel you are qualified, they won't listen to you. That's unfortunately true. A lot of times, if I don't feel someone's qualified, like I had we visited a church one day, and he's a very young pastor, been married maybe 12 years, something like that. And at this recording, my wife and I have celebrated 31 years, and he's giving marriage advice. And I'm thinking, dude, really? You haven't been through anything yet, okay? But he knew, he'd done study, and he'd studied things and stuff like that. So, and he had had sources. But it's just one of those things where if we don't feel like you're qualified for it, you're out. We don't listen to you. That's the downfall. That's the things we have to work on. Another con is they give too much detail. They give more information than you can ever use. They have great difficulty communicating the practical use of their knowledge, as a rule. But that's some of the traits are that they can communicate easily, and some they'll give too much information, which is something I learned I do sometimes, is I just give way too much information. In fact, I may have shared way too much on this video. But anyway, but they're easily offended and critical. See, if you don't have it right, if you use the wrong word, if you know, there's one specific word that a lot of the younger people are saying incorrectly, and every time I hear it, it just grates on me. And I want to correct them, but it's like my wife says, is it going to matter? Does it even matter? No, I guess it doesn't. So anyway, so that's the cons. So let's talk about jobs and activities and careers and that sort of thing that go along with teaching. They can be an academic, of course. That goes without saying. They're good at analysts, because they can analyze all the data, all the information. Chemist is a good career to be in. A doctor needs to be very detailed, very structured, and that sort of thing. An editor can be a good editor for information. Now, myself, I'm not. In fact, I had to hire an editor to edit the book that goes along with this, because I just recorded the videos and they transcribed them and then edit them to make them more, book conducive. And so I'm not, but some people with the teaching gift are good. They can be experts in certain areas. They're good to have an expert. Historians, which I love history. I don't love learning the facts. I just love experiencing history. Going to like Florence, Italy, and things like that, and seeing history and learning about it. They're good investigators, good journalists, because they're going to get all the details. They can be a judge. They can be a lawyer. And they are learners. They're always learning something. They can work in the legal field. They can be physicists, a professor. Again, these are just suggestions. These are things that could work. If none of these resonate with you, then that's fine. But just trying to give you some information. Psychologist. I've always been interested in psychology. What is the psychology behind what they're doing? They're good for doing reference. A lot of pastors actually have people on staff that run reference for them, and they have the motivational gift of teaching. They're good reporters, researchers, scientists, statisticians. They're good students. They're good in the technical fields, and testing or testers, and testifier, people that are expert witnesses, and writers. People with the gift of teaching can be good writers, and which I hope to be. The book that comes along with this, then I hope to develop several more books. But again, I'm not a great writer. I'm a communicator, but I do write better than I speak, but I get bored too easy with writing, and so I don't stick with it as long as I need to. So that's why I try to just record, talking, because I talk better than I write. I'm more comfortable talking longer than I am writing, and so because I get sidetracked when I'm writing. I get sidetracked on spelling and grammar and things like that, and so I just want to communicate the information. I just want to get it communicated. So that's why I use someone that can transcribe my teaching, my audio or the video, that sort of stuff, and then they can take it and actually structure in our book and make it more like a book. So anyway, that's the motivational gift of teaching. I hope you're learning something. I hope I'm sharing information. I'm not sharing too much about myself. The only reason I did that is because that's my number one, and so it would help you, give you some more insight. Now, on the other ones that I'm not, I'll share about other people, like the serving I did, my mother, that sort of thing. So anyway, I'm excited about this information. I'm excited that you're with me. You're learning this with me, and just look forward to seeing you again on the next video. And we'll see you later. Thanks.